Reginald.
Hello, George.
Thank you very much for joining us for Hablo Talks.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a while.
Yes, it has been. It's been a little while, yes.
But it's great to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for your time in advance. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Where did it all start for you?
Where did it all start for me? How far back do we want to go, George?
We're talking about the travel industry.
I was inspired to get into this industry, into this world, actually through my grandfather.
Okay.
So my grandfather was actually the Minister of Tourism for Haiti in the 50s and 60s. And so I'd heard this and there was discussions about it. I never met him because unfortunately he passed away, but that was kind of like an intrigue, an interest of mine. And then also to combine that, my mother traveled for work a lot. She traveled the world a lot. She traveled to Africa and to Asia. So I was always fascinated by that whole notion of travel and tourism, and that's what kind of drove it for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, as with everything in this industry, it's kind of one of those things where you just fall into it kind of thing also. So, after having that background of my mother and my grandfather, it went into, oh, well, you know what? I've majored in political science at uni. Am I going to be a political scientist? No. So I ended up working for Air France, ironically enough.
Okay.
And it was, I know this is probably, I'm aging myself, but it was an ad in the newspaper that said, French airline is looking for a salesperson. If you speak French, fantastic. So I was like, oh, I do speak French. Let me apply for it. And it was Air France, and they called me within 20 minutes, and then that's how it all started. So I ended up spending 8 years at Air France in corporate sales. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I went on to go work for Thai Airways.
Okay.
So I did corporate sales for Thai Airways for 5 years. But in the meantime, I went to graduate school at NYU, and I majored in tourism development. And so I have a master's degree in tourism development, but my idea for tourism development at the time was more economic development. Mm-hmm. As opposed to marketing development. But you know what? I was in New York City. So guess what? Marketing it is. So it was absolutely fantastic. So from there, I was able to start up with NYC Company. And that was 14 years ago. It'll be 15 years in this coming July. That I'll be with NYC Company 15 years.
15 years. Wow.
It feels like 2, but it's 15 years, which is very surprising how time has gone quickly.
Flown.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes. Yeah.
Why is it the best industry to work in?
Oh my gosh! I mean, I think we only have a couple of minutes, but we could take hours to talk about this. Mm-hmm. I think it's the notion of being able to travel and being able to go see different places and different things, interact with different people, learn from different people, learn from different experiences. Everybody shares that kind of that desire to explore and learn and be different and kind of see how life is in different countries and different cities. And I just think it's also the camaraderie that everybody has within this industry as well. You end up traveling with people, and then you end up staying for, you end up becoming friends. You end up becoming close personal friends. So when you do go to a different city, for example, and you're not visiting, quote unquote, you can go to London, and I have a few friends in London, so I can go see friends in London. I have a few friends in Paris. I have a few friends in Australia. So you get to kind of have that experience, kind of be able to meet, talk to people, bond, build relationships. It's just a fun industry. Put it that way. Fun industry.
Totally agree. What makes the travel trade such a strong community?
What makes them a strong community is the fact that everybody is interested in the same thing. Everybody loves travel. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to travel. Everybody wants to promote travel. Everybody wants to kind of learn and kind of have this exploration. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, we're all very privileged to be in this industry. When I talk to, as I call them, laymen, people outside of the tourism industry, about where I'm going on a business trip. I'm going to London on a business trip. I'm going to be there for a few days, and everybody just looks in awe of like, wow. Mm-hmm. And you kind of tend to forget that how easy it is for all of us in the industry to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think the travel agents, are super key also because they're the spokespeople for a destination. Mm-hmm. They're the spokesperson for the company. They're the spokesperson for the airline, for everything in regards to travel, because that's who the customer is going to, and that's who we're talking to also. So we're talking to them to kind of inform them and educate them, And thus that education that we give them goes to the consumer. And the consumer says, guess what? I'm going to New York City.
No, brilliant. Totally agree with you. Reginald, what's your most memorable travel experience?
Ooh, wow.
Ooh,
Wow, that's a good one.
there's going to be a few, isn't there?
That's a few of them. Whew, okay, can I give you two?
Of course you can.
Okay, all right. So the first one actually is, to Guatemala.
Okay.
Guatemala, my cousin was getting married in Guatemala, so I didn't have any expectation. I knew of Guatemala. I'm familiar with Guatemala. A high school friend of mine, his father was running for president of Guatemala, but I hadn't thought about Guatemala in years, decades, let's be clear. And so when my cousin was getting married there, I was like, oh, well, it's time to go to Guatemala. And I had no expectation. I didn't read anything. I didn't look up anything. I didn't talk to unfortunately, I didn't talk to any travel agents. I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And so when I arrived in Guatemala, it just blew me away. It was just absolutely an amazing experience. It was just, the people were warm and friendly. We went to Antigua, Guatemala, which is probably 45 minutes outside of Guatemala City. Just a magical, beautiful place, a historic location. It's a small city, but it has a charm and uniqueness. And it's amazing to see that everything is built behind a wall. So if you're walking down the street, you don't experience anything. But then if you open the doors and you walk behind the walls, you see these glorious and amazing buildings, hotels with these gardens that are absolutely sensational. And the people are just super friendly. And then you're driving around and just the warmth and just the beauty of the city and the country itself, with the volcanoes that are there. And then we ended up going to Lake Atitlan, which is like a big lake in the middle of Guatemala. And I call it loosely, basically, the Lake Como of Guatemala. I mean, it has homes around it. The lake is calm, it's beautiful, there are views of the volcanoes. It was an absolutely magical experience. But of course, the number one most memorable experience I had was going on safari to South Africa in 2018. If you haven't been on safari, I recommend everybody should go on safari, period. But we went on safari, it was a 2-week trip, and it was the most memorable to see the big five, to see these animals coming up to you and being that close to you and just seeing nature and in that form was absolutely spectacular. I mean, if I could do it every week, I would go on safari every week, but that was the most memorable trip for me.
Well, I actually agree with you on the second one, actually. That's one of my favorite trips. Yeah. What's the best part of working for NYC Company?
Oh my gosh, the best part of working for NYC Company, I think it's the fact that it's always changing. There's never a dull moment. There's something always happening, something to be learned from, something different to do. It's not the same job every single time. I think my colleagues are absolutely, they're wonderful. They're amazing. They're fun. They're unique. They have great ideas. It's it kind of sounds kind of hokey to say this word, but it's like a family. And everybody gets along very well. We work hard. We go out and socialize with each other. It's really kind of that mantra. And our CEO, Fred Dixon, really is that kind of personality that makes everybody feel very comfortable. And I think that transcends and translates to everybody within the company. So we're all very close to each other. We all work well together. It's just a great company to work for.
No, brilliant. And a great place as well.
Yes, New York City is a great place. Yes.
Great place. Who has been your biggest mentor?
That's a very interesting question. I've always thought that when you have a mentor, you have one person that's like dedicated to you and that you talk to all the time. But I never really had that. I think for me it was more along the lines of different people.
Yeah.
That kind of impacted and kind of gave me recommendations, advice, suggestions, kind of the guidance that I needed. So I would have to say it's a multitude of people that have given me great advice. The one advice that I received from my former VP at Air France, David Bruscia, he told me that you need to know how to communicate in the business world. And your communication in the business world is very different than your communication in your personal world. And you have to know how to separate the two. And I said, which I never knew. So that has helped me throughout my career, which was really valuable advice for me.
One last question. What's new? What's happening? What can we look forward to when I go back to New York?
Oh my gosh, George, that's what to do. There's a lot to do. That's the good thing about New York.
What's new? Because I was there in 2019.
Okay, so since 2019, we've had a lot of openings. We had a lot of hotel openings. We had a lot of attractions that have opened. You know, it's really, I think for New York, it's really going beyond. I think, you know, we talk about the 5 boroughs. Let me just take this really quickly. We talk about the 5 boroughs, and that, yes, Manhattan is well known. Everybody knows Manhattan. For the first-time visitor, yes, absolutely come to Manhattan. But of course, in the 2 years that people were at home and couldn't travel, a lot of people started reading and looking at the internet, reading books and learning more about New York City and saying, when this is all over, we're going to go back and do the X, Y, and Z. So what has happened is that, you know, now people are more interested in going to the Brooklyns, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx, as well as different neighborhoods within Manhattan. And so that being said, in regards to what's new, it's, you know, there's a Summit One Vanderbilt. It's a new observation deck in Midtown Manhattan on 42nd Street between Madison and Vanderbilt Avenue. Spectacular building. There's the Aman Hotel, which is a luxury property that just opened up in August. You know, you have a few hotels in Long Island City, Queens. Now, Long Island City, Queens has become like the new hip spot to go to. There's been massive development in Long Island City, Queens. There's a couple of Holiday Inns, a Sheraton that's there. So it's giving people different options. So they can pick and choose which neighborhood they want to go and stay in. And Long Island City has all of that to offer. There's also a Michelin star restaurant called Casa Enrique, located in Long Island City, the first ever Michelin star restaurant in Queens. So you have all that newness there. In the Bronx, which is kind of interesting, people always just assume, oh, it's the Yankees, and then we'll just go see the Yankees and then leave. I say, well, yes, you can do that also, but you should really go off and go visit a little bit more. You can go visit Arthur Avenue. You can go visit actually City Island, which people are familiar with that because City Island actually is a place where you can go fishing and sailing. And people would never imagine that to happen in the Bronx, right? You can go and visit the various parks that they have because it's the greenest borough in all of New York City. So just walking through Parkland and just having that outdoor experience is fantastic. And speaking of outdoor, there's Little Island, which was built and opened actually about a year and a half ago or so. Basically, it's a park built on the water, and they have what they call little tulips. So basically, they have little pods, basically, that make up the parkland. And so this is a really unique and different type of park in New York City. And you actually can go and there's beautiful flowers and garden, et cetera, et cetera. And then you actually have performances that are at Little Island. So it's a great place to go and see. And then Governor's Island, which was a former military base. It's been open for a long time, but now they've exclusively made it pedestrian. So there's no cars. It's really a place to go for kind of if you want to kind of escape a little bit and kind of have a little bit of quiet in the middle of a city. There's a ferry that takes you from either Manhattan or Brooklyn that takes you on to Governor's Island, which is superb and stunning. There's Brooklyn Bridge Park, which opened up. They have different piers, so that's complete now. So it's really right on the water with spectacular views of Lower Manhattan and just Manhattan skyline overall. Then you pop over to on 29th Street, there's, sorry, not 29th Street, but 23rd Street, Fotografiska, which is a new museum which is dedicated to photography. That has opened up and it's gangbusters. It's a beautiful museum. It has the latest, well, I'm sure by the time this is on, it'll be over, but David LaChapelle has this exhibition at this particular location, and it's 5 levels, and it's breathtaking. It's absolutely amazing. And then you head downtown. You head downtown to Lower Manhattan. There are a number of hotels that opened up there. There's Casa Cipriani that's opened up in Lower Manhattan. You're going to have the Ronald Perlman Performing Arts Center opening up very soon. So I could go on for hours, but I have to be careful because we only have a short amount of time. But one thing to do is you also have to go to Staten Island. And I know that a lot of people, when they go to Staten Island, they just take the ferry and then come back around. Stop doing that. You can actually take the ferry, get off of the ferry, and go visit the first ever outlet shopping center in New York City called Empire Outlets. Wow. So, you save time It's about a 20-minute ferry ride. You take a picture of the beautiful Statue of Liberty, hop off, and then you go shopping. You can go buy what you need to buy. There's going to be a new hotel opening up in the St. George neighborhood, which is where Empire Outlets is located. So it's easy access there. And then you can pop over to the Snug Harbor Cultural Center, which is a fantastic area also to be able to just to explore and just relax a little bit. And one thing that people aren't familiar with is the fact that there is surfing in New York City. So people find that hard to believe and think that surfing is only done on the West Coast or in Australia, but actually there is surfing in Queens at Rockaway Beach, and that's done all year round. So it's a great opportunity, great experience to be able to do that. And we want people to go also and see the diversity in New York City and the diversity of different neighborhoods. Like for example, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, there's an area that's really dedicated to the Caribbean lifestyle. So you have Caribbean. They have food, they have clothing, they have shopping where you can go groceries and buy some spices from the Caribbean, giving you an opportunity to be able to see the local life and see the diversity that's found in New York City. You also can go to Flushing, which is predominantly a Chinese neighborhood, and kind of see and kind of feel that experience in Flushing. So there's a lot to see and do in regards to experiences and diversity and just different things that are opening up in New York City. So I'm sure by the time we finish this interview, there'll be something, 18 new things in New York City.
Well, Reginald, just listening to you now, it's like music to my ears, because I remember we're going on probably nearly 10 years ago, and we were having that discussion about there's so much more to do than what everyone else is just thinking of Manhattan, when there's so many different parts of New York City to get to enjoy.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, Reginald, thank you very much.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, young man.
Thank you, young man.